analog versus digital. We all understand that we have to use the best of both worlds, and we also want technology that bridges the gap between the analog and the digital world. And we absolutely need that because that's how this process works. So to have someone whose expertise in the analog world is unparalleled be the person that, is able to create a bridge to the digital world just makes sense to me. It's hard to find anyone with a better track record. My name is Pete Lyman. I'm the owner and principal mastering engineer here at Infrasonic Mastering. We're currently at our Nashville location. We also have a location in Los Angeles, California, and we're a full-service mastering suite that handles all formats, including vinyl mastering. Mastering engineer is basically the final gatekeeper in the recording process. We are the ones that make an album sound like a cohesive piece of art. As an old punk rock kid that grew up on vinyl, and back when I was playing in bands, even in the early 90s, when you were in a band and you were able to get a vinyl record made, even just a 7-inch single, that's what seemed real. And I was always kind of drawn to that. And once I saw a lacquer being cut, it sort of tied it all together for me, my geeky audio side and also my mechanical gearhead side. It was the perfect, marriage of both of those things. And that's when I fell in love with the process. Giant 5088 was my intro to the Rupert Neve Designs world. I became really familiar with that console and absolutely loved it. The Rupert Neve sound, to me, I feel like what I'm hearing back is the sound I'm searching for, but just a little bit better than I expected. It's just an instantly familiar sound that I associate with a lot of records I love. And I found when I was working on that console, what was coming out of it was a better translation of what I visualized and what I heard in my head before it even went down. And I just found it was just easier to make a record on that console. I found out about the RMPDA and we were all blown away by the quality of the converters. If I was a recording engineer, man, I would own 24 of those things, and that's all I would use for mic pre's. Those things are insane. So I gave Josh my feedback about this converter. We started talking more and more about this, and I started throwing stuff out at him like, well, what if you made a 2-channel box, and what if it was more mastering centric? And what if you had the limiter on there? And what about silk modes? What about a variable high pass filter before the limiter? And I just kept throwing stuff out at him, and we talked about it, and then months went by and I didn't really think about it. And then he called me and said, hey, here's that box we talked about. To me, the MBC is just a perfectly designed 2-channel ADC that happens to combine a lot of my favorite features from the master bus processor. It's a really great master clock. In mastering, you really want to clock off your AD, and so far this works flawlessly for that. I love having a great sounding, really fast analog limiter right before the AD, and having more silk modes just kind of opens up a whole new world. So sometimes when I feel like something's a little bit lifeless and it's just not coming together with EQ, I might try a few variations on the silk mode, and when it works, it just works. That's the thing that really pushes that track over the edge and gets it where I want to go. And since I already own a master bus processor, oftentimes it's cool to be able, on some projects, to use a little bit of the blue silk on one unit and a little bit of the red on another. The master bus processor is one of the centerpieces of my mastering chain. It's really nice to have a little bit of really fast analog limiting in the chain before your converter. And that's what's so interesting about the MBC, is now we have some of the functionality in the converter as well. What I'm looking for in a converter is the most neutral possible sound, and I know that's subjective. So it, really in the end, it kind of comes down to personal preference. I don't want anything that's going to impart any sort of additional footprint at the mastering stage for most of my projects. Now, oftentimes I do feel like I need a little extra mojo, so being able to insert the transformer and the different silk modes, and I can go anywhere from being really subtle or really extreme with it, that is really useful. I guess a good example of that would be if I get a recording that was done and maybe it was done on a lower budget and the engineers and artists didn't have access to a lot of the really expensive great gear that some of us have access to. So it's nice to, in the mastering process, be able to add a little bit of that kind of analog transformer vibe. And it's really convenient to just be able to hit a button, turn it off and on, hear how it's sounding instantly. Like, is it making it better? Is it making it worse? And it's laid out really nicely on the MBC, and there's no apparent level change there or anything like that. So you really can easily get a true A/B in real time just by tapping a button. Not only does this box sound amazing, but the ergonomics of the box are perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. It's really easy to use. The meters are fantastic. I'm really excited that Rupert Neve Designs developed the MBC. There's nothing cooler than seeing a box with the Rupert Neve Designs name on it that I had at least a small bit in launching at least the idea. It's all Rupert Neve Designs, but I feel really privileged that they cared enough and respected me enough to ask for my input. Just knowing that I'm part of this box's origin is really exciting.